I cannot stand ESPN these days, and it's not just because of what you think the reason is. It has nothing to do with the political factor of anything. What I'm starting to get really frustrated is they're clearly not doing their homework when it comes to my Denver Broncos. Welcome in Broncos Country to the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. My name is Moose. Their most recent report that they just came out with, by the way, might be the worst take of all year for this team. Well, Moose, it's only February. Yeah, and this might be the worst take of 2026. I'm beginning to think that ESPN is just lazy. Like, they're supposed to cover all 32 teams, and I get that that's tough. But the guy that wrote this report, the guy that wrote this article for the Broncos, and I'll tell you what he's talking about coming up here in a little bit, is just beyond false. It's like the complete opposite of what's going to actually happen. And it's clear to me they're not watching the games. So ESPN released an article for what they call a change of scenery. Every single team gets a player that needs a new change of scenery. Now, whether that be in free agency, whether that be with the trade, this player is currently on your 53-man roster that needs to be on another team, is essentially what this article is saying. And the Broncos candidate literally makes no sense. So, before we get to who that candidate is, if you're losing faith in ESPN just like me, prove it. Hit that thumbs up icon. Double tap it. Actually, don't double tap it because that unlikes the video. So just tap it the one time and then hit subscribe if you want to join the ever-growing family of Broncos fans. We're at 57,130. So the player listed in this article for the Broncos that needs a change of scenery, they claim is Jonah Ellis. So they want the Broncos to trade Jonah Ellis. I'm going to let that marinate with you for a second. What the fuck are they talking about? Pardon my language. Here's what the actual article said. ESPN writes, this is not an issue of a player who is not properly developed. Instead, Ellis is a talented young pass rusher who doesn't have a path to start behind veterans Nick Bonitto and Jonathon Cooper. You mean the best edge duo in the league? Oh, yeah, me too. Last season, Ellis had a 14.1% pass rush win rate and a 12.2% pressure rate. Both of those numbers were above average for edge rushers, but he only played 38% of the snaps in games for which he was active. Remember, he dealt with a little bit of an injury last year. It would be intriguing to see Ellis get a chance to start elsewhere in the league, perhaps alongside his brother Christian with the New England Patriots. This is comical. This is crazy. This is insane. Like, what are we doing? Do your homework. The Broncos love Jonah Ellis. They're not getting rid of him. They're not getting rid of him. And it's not just the fact that he fits the locker room so well. The numbers, the player is good. The player brings value to this team. Pass rush win rate of 14.1%. The pressure rate is 12.2%, only playing on 38% of the snaps. Yes, you saw that in that article. So let's do a little bit more homework. What do the other numbers tell you? He played in 13 games, had 28 tackles, 6 for loss, and 2.5 sacks. Okay. Was it the most egregious of numbers? Was he like the most main benefactor of this Broncos defense? No, of course not. But we've got the best pass rush in the entire league. You're not going to expect a player like Jonah Ellis to start over Nick Bonitto or Jonathon Cooper or John Franklin Myers or Zach Allen. But he is a pivotal piece. He is a chess piece for this edge spot, this edge room. It's depth. It's depth. He's also a fantastic special teams player. I think we forget Jonah Ellis is a top 5 special teams player on the Broncos. Now, Devin Key is an all-pro. Quite literally was named the first-team all-pro special teams. Q Robinson, who I think is going to have an unbelievable future with this team. He's a freak. Frank Crum, believe it or not, is a great special teams player. J.L. Skinner and then Jonah Ellis. All of these, by the way, excellent special teams grades. Now, I will play devil's advocate slightly here. Slightly. And I'll tell you why. I'm aware that the NFL is a business. The Broncos are a team in that business. Obviously, sometimes you have to make tough business decisions to move off of fan-favorite players. Look what happened with Devon Vele. But I will also go out and say Devon Vele's impact on this team was far less than anything that Jonah Ellis brings to the table. because Jonah Ellis is a top 5 special teams player and a key piece in that edge room as a depth piece. Also, do you remember when ESPN, before the season started, told us that Dondre Tillman was going to get cut, that he wasn't going to make the 53-man roster? I do, because I made a video on it. I remember them saying Dondre Tillman most likely not going to make the 53. And I was like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. They love Dondre Tillman, just like they love Jonah Ellis. So this report from ESPN is lunacy. It's bullshit. It's poppycock. It's Smeckledorf. It's not even a word, but you can agree with me, right? Shout out SpongeBob. If this is the worst report of the year so far from ESPN, let me know down in the comment section down below. If you're watching during our live show, make sure you get down in the live chat and give a yes or a no. I should see a bunch of yeses, because to me, it's so rage baity that it's almost comical. Like, I'm not even that angry about it. It's almost whimsical to me. I laugh at this report. Now, something I'm not going to laugh at is coming up next. I do see 2 trade candidates on the Broncos. 2 players the Broncos could move off of that have significant trade value that we could get adequate draft compensation for. And I'm going to tell you who those are coming up here in just a little bit. Now, before I do that, I got to tell you about my friends over at Prize Picks. Shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right, Prize Picks now gives you $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. It makes every dunk, dime, and every board that much more exciting, especially if you're a Nuggets fan. So don't miss this chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. It's super simple to play, guys. You pick more or less in your player stat projection. You get your picks right. You cash in. It takes 30 seconds to make a lineup. And by the way, speaking of that lineup, if you want to cash out early, they got a brand new feature that is early payouts, meaning if your lineup gets off to a hot start, you can cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. So do yourself a favor, download the app today. Takes 30 seconds to make a lineup look just like this. You pick your player, you pick the more or the less, watch your money multiply. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It is good to be right. Okay, so the trade candidates as I see them are Evan Engram and Riley Moss. These are the only 2 players that I'd be willing to, at least right now, actually move off of. So if a GM called me up, if I'm George Paton, I'd be taking calls about these 2 players. Again, this is not a shot at Riley Moss, but as a starting outside caliber corner, we could get adequate compensation for him. Both players hold trade value, even Evan Engram. So yes, I'd be willing to move off of these players. It wouldn't be my first preference to move off of Riley Moss. But let's start with Evan Engram. If there is one player that I think could get traded before free agency starts, it'd probably be him. Now, the reason I say that is because if you designate him as a post-June 1st trade, or pre-June 1st trade, you save $8.8 million in cap savings. That'd be more, that's more than what you would get if you cut him. If you cut him, it's only 7.4. So you actually save about another $1.5 million if you trade him pre-June 1st. And there are plenty of teams that would be hungry for a tight end, which we'll touch on here in a second. But let's look over the numbers real quick. Again, I don't know how many times I have to tell you guys this. Evan Engram might have done really well in separation. He might have created a bunch of separation throughout the league, and as a tight end might have been top in that area, but he didn't have a role on Sean Payton's offense. Now, maybe that changes with Davis Webb, so maybe that's why you keep him, but at this point right now, from what we know, Evan Engram is definitely a movable asset. And there are plenty of tight end hungry teams, like I told you. Washington is looking for tight end. Tennessee will be looking for a tight end after Chigakonkwo goes. The Patriots, but I would never trade with the Patriots because fuck them. And the Minnesota Vikings. They are probably going to be moving off of TJ Hawkinson in the near future, so they need another player that can kind of combo at that tight end spot. So if I decided to make a trade, if I'm George Paton, beep, boop, beep, beep, boop, calling up some GMs, brr, brr, I'm calling the Commanders GM, and I'm saying, hey, here's my trade offer. Evan Engram, and you get Evan Engram, we get a 5th round pick this year. I think that's pretty fair. And if you're saying, wow, that feels low, does it? Evan Ingram's going to be 30 years old. He's a tight end who was coming off a bad year, only 1 touchdown. I feel like a 5th-round pick is pretty adequate compensation for him. So that would be my first trade idea there for Mr. Evan Engram. Now let's move on to Riley Moss. This one I go back and forth with. I kind of waffle back and forth on Riley Moss. And the reason being is that Riley is a more than capable starter for this team. But ESPN is already listing him as a trade candidate and kind of like a trade piece for the Broncos. So unless they're as lazy with their trade ideas, which, by the way, this is not a great trade. I would not make this trade if I was George Payton. This is ESPN's trade idea. Unless they are knowing already something that Riley Moss is one of those players that is already being packaged for a deal, I'm only unloading him for a 3rd. You have to give us back a 3rd-round pick, which is exactly where we drafted him, by the way. He's lived up to his draft status. Now, you could look at the numbers this last year, and remember, he started all 17 games, so he didn't get injured, which is great. But 19 PBUs is an incredible amount. I think that led the league, if I'm being quite honest. He does get picked on a lot, though, right? When you play alongside Pat Surtain, you're going to be picked on quite a bit. Nobody throws at Pat Surtain. So they're going to throw to the other guy. And elephant in the room, he's white. So, of course, they're going to pick on him as more than you would think. Right? Let's just call a spade a spade. There's only 2 white corners in the league, guys. Riley and Coop. So I kind of look at Riley and I say, good starting caliber player, good starting caliber trade piece, but unless that number and that draft pick is not attached to a 3rd, I'm not giving him up. I'm not. So would you move on? Would you trade Evan Engram or Riley Moss before free agency starts? T for trade or K for keep? I think I would trade for sure Evan Engram. I don't know about Riley Moss yet. Like I said, everything depends on that package that is thrown together. That's all I got for you on today's episode. A reminder to hit that thumbs up icon. Subscribe to the channel. Both of those things are free. A mile high salute to you, Broncos Country. Be cool.